we are going to start another chapter, that is chapter number 15, which is overview of audit of public sector undertakings. Okay. Now, before we proceed and before we start any discussion, any doubts till now about this topic? Any doubts? Any questions you guys might have? See, that's the important part is we need to understand that, is there any, doubts that you have, or is there any issue you have with respect to the topic, so that that can be cleared out. And the moment you will ask the doubt, it will be very helpful, to basically, understand the topic. The more you will ask, the more easily we will understand the topic. So any doubt till now? No? Okay. If no doubts, then let's proceed and continue the discussion on the chapter number 15. Chapter number 15, that is the overview of public sector undertaking. Here, we will get an overview of how basically, the audit of the public sector undertaking is performed. Okay, so we will understand the aspect of the audit of public sector undertaking. In this particular chapter, if I talk about this particular chapter, we will understand from the scope of what is public sector undertaking, what are government audits, okay, the principles of PSU audits, how PSU audits are carried out. We will understand various types of PSU audits with respect to compliance, performance, comprehensive, proprietary, okay. And then we will see some audit reports which are issued in this scenario to understand how the report drafting happens. Okay, so this is how we are going to cover in this particular chapter. Okay, now before I jump or deep dive into like what is the public sector audit, okay, and what is and how the PSU audit is carried out, can anyone tell me what is a public sector? Like, public sector undertaking. So when I talk about the definition of public sector undertaking, what do you mean by that? Can anyone tell me what is the, crux of understanding a public sector undertaking? How can I identify this particular entity is a public sector undertaking or this particular entity is not a public sector undertaking? Anyone? How to identify that this particular entity is a public sector undertaking, this entity is not a public sector undertaking? No? See, first of all, when we talk about what is a public sector undertaking, okay, we need to understand from the perspective of wider angle. That means we are not only talking about a company. No, we are not talking about a company over here, but we are talking about a public sector undertaking, okay, which can be basically your multiple companies, which can be multiple forms of the companies, or let's say multiple units that are involved into that. Can anyone tell me what is the government company as per the Companies Act? Government company as per the definition of Companies Act. Anyone? What do you mean by government company as per the Companies Act? No? Let us see from the Companies Act itself, because that's how we will understand. Let's go to the act itself and let's understand what do we meant when we say a government company. Okay, so let's go to the definitions. And over there, we have a definition of 245. I'll zoom in for you. Now, what it says when I talk about a government company means any company, okay, any company in which not less than 50% of the paid up share capital is held by a central government or by any state government or partly by central government and partly by one or more state government, and includes a company which is a subsidiary company of such government company. Okay, so here we are talking about multiple things. One, a company basically in which 51%, not less than 51%, that is more than 50%, 51% or more is being held by, central government, state government, or in combination, and that includes their subsidiary also. Okay, now the explanation is also given that the paid up share capital shall include the total voting power and where the differential voting rights have been issued. So if there is any differential voting right being issued, then over there you need to consider the total voting power. Okay, so when I talk about the public sector undertaking, first of all we think of a government company. Okay, first of all we think of a public sector undertaking, that means a government company. But apart from the government company, there are various kind of public sector undertakings. There are various kind of public sector undertaking. One is the government company, which is formed under the Companies Act, for which we saw the definition. But there are others also. For example, departments which are managed by the central or the state government, which forms part of the governmental activities. Can anyone name such departments? Like departments which are managed by the central government or state governments. Anyone? Which are the departments which are managed by central and the state governments? Very good. Okay, Kanaya. But I will come to NHAI in a minute. Meanwhile, any other department that you think of which is managed by the state or the central government? Anyone? Apart from what you have mentioned, any other department that you think of? IT, GST department, yes. I'll show you something. Okay, let me show you something with respect to that. Okay, CBDT. Now, when I talk about department, I am talking about basically, functions which are there of the government. Okay, various different functions. Now, CBDT, Central Board of Direct Taxes, is one such function which is a part of the Department of Revenue. Now, let's go and see the Department of Revenue. Okay, because by that way we will understand how these department works. Department of Revenue. So this is one particular department that I'm talking about, Department of Revenue, which is under the Ministry of Finance. In a similar way, if I talk about the division, there are multiple divisions of this particular department. Then this department is divided into multiple divisions. Okay, and then you have a CBDT 1, CBIC 1, Revenue Headquarters. So there are 3 divisions within this department, and this is one such department of the Ministry of Finance. Okay, similarly, Government of India has multiple departments, multiple ministries. Okay, and if you see this is a government website, I'm showing you, there are multiple departments, like with respect to the different services which are there. If you go for the services, you will see a lot of departments over there. Just a minute. So if I light over here, let's say for example, post. So these are the post related services which are there. So postal services, public utilities, like this way, various different services are provided through different departments Okay, and accordingly you have a different kind of ministry. For example, you have a department of economic affairs, you have a department of postal services, you have a ministry of communication, and then you have a different department under that. Okay, so different ministries have different department, and accordingly different kind of public sector undertakings are there. In that, different public sector undertakings are present. Okay, so that is one such part, the departments we are talking about. We are talking, we discuss about the government companies. Now let's go to the corporations. Now corporations set up under specific act. Over there, your example Kanaya, NHAI is coming into the picture, because NHAI has a separate act, NHAI Act 1988. It was established under this particular act. Okay, so National Highway Authority of India is a body which is created under a specific act. So if you go to NHAI, about NHAI, or the details, you will get that there is a NHAI Act 1988 under which it was established. Similarly, ICAI under an act. So wherever there is a body which is being established under an act, that particular body is also a public sector undertaking. Okay, so for example, Life Insurance Corporation, Unit Trust of India, SBI, a lot of things are there which are created under specific act. Now these corporations, the government companies, the departments being managed by various ministries, all of these are public sector undertakings. Okay, all of these are public sector undertakings. Clear? Any doubt till now? Okay, if no doubt, let's understand further something more. Okay, now when I talk about basically public sector undertakings, we are talking about audit of these public sector undertakings. Okay, now if I talk about audit of this public sector undertaking, then in that case, what is the provision, from where the provision of the audit comes? See, government companies, we know section 139, 140, 141 till 143, all those things are over there. But when I talk about other departments, when I talk about specific corporations, where is the provision of the audit for these companies or these public sector undertakings? Anyone? From where I can think of the requirement that is there for the audit of these kind of undertakings? Can anyone tell me where is the audit requirement of these kind of undertakings? Yes, no? Under the Constitution, CNAG Act. Let's see this particular part under the Constitution. So this is the Constitution of India, updated as on 1st May 2026. Okay, now we basically will go certain clauses or certain provisions of this Constitution, and we will understand that. Let's understand from certain provisions of the Constitution. Now, what are the basically articles that we will refer to? We will refer the article of Comptroller and Audit General of India, which is your chapter 5 of the Indian Constitution. Chapter 5 of the Indian Constitution deals with the Comptroller and Audit General of India, and article 148 to 151 basically is something which deals into this particular aspect. Let's go and see the article 148 to 151. Okay, so here we are with the article 148, that the Comptroller and Audit General of India. What this article says, that there shall be a Comptroller and Audit General of India who shall be appointed by the President, Okay. Now, every person appointed as a CNAG, okay, basically has to perform some activities. And there are certain, act of the parliament that will decide the other things of the CNAG. So salary and other conditions of service will be decided by the parliament. Okay. And that person will be appointed and, will, what you can say, will handle the office of CNAG. Okay. And now duties and powers of the CNAG. Now, when you say the duties and powers, what it says that the constitution says that CNAG shall perform such duties and powers in relation to the accounts of the union and state or any other authority or a body as may be prescribed under any law made by the parliament. Okay. So he has to perform his duties and exercise of his power in relation to the accounts of the union and states. Okay. So form of accounts and union of these states then shall be kept by the CNAG. And 151 talks about the audit report, which says that the reports of the CNAG in relation to the accounts of union shall be submitted to the president, which will laid in the House of Parliament. Okay. Now these are known as the audit reports. So reports on the accounts of the union or respective state that will be there. Okay. So second article 151(2) talks about the accounts of the state. 151(1) talks about the accounts of the union. So it talks about laying down the audit report on the accounts of the union and the state. So we are talking about these reports. But how these reports are prepared, what are the other laws or regulations that are required to be undertaken, what are the powers of CNAG, there is a separate act for this. There is a separate act because the conditions, conditions of service and such other things which are not specified in the constitution are specified in a particular act, which is the CNAG Act. Okay. Now, when I talk about the CNAG Act, can anyone tell me what are the key provisions of the CNAG Act which deals with the audit of public sector undertaking? Which provisions we are talking about? What provisions we are talking about of CNAG Act? Which are relevant over here? Anyone? No? Okay. Let me show you something with respect to that. Okay. This is the website of CNAG, Comptroller and Audit General of India, the Supreme Audit Institution of India. Okay. Now, if you go to the constitutional powers, they will talk about the constitutional powers under Article 148 to 151. Okay. Plus, there is third schedule. Okay. And there is sixth schedule, something additional, responsibilities which are there. So these are the basic constitutional provisions that we have discussed already. Now, apart from that, there is an act which is known as the Comptroller and the Audit General Duties, Powers and Service of Condition of Service Act 1971. We call it a DPC Act 1971. Okay. This particular act specifies a lot of things. Like, first of all, the condition of the services. Then it talks about the duties and powers, which is there in the chapter 3 of the CNAG Act. Okay. So chapter 3 talks about that how CNAG is required to compile the accounts of union and state. Compilation, audit, everything it's prescribed in this. And then how it is required to be, performed, like how audit is required to be performed. Okay. So the CNAG is required to audit all transactions, all trading, manufacturing, profit and loss balance sheet of other subsidiaries, account kept in any department. Okay. To audit all expenditure. Okay. So here the detailed audit requirements are there. Constitution says that the report is required to be laid, but how the report is required to be prepared, how the report is, the audit is required to be done for the purpose of report is provided under the DPC Act. Okay, so audit of receipt expenditure of bodies and authorities substantially financed by union and state, public sector undertaking we are talking about. So that is section 14. Okay, where any body, authority is substantially financed by the grants or loan from the Consolidated Fund of India. Okay, the CNAG shall, subject to the provisions, okay, audit all receipt and expenditure of that particular body. So CNAG has been given powers to perform the audit over here. Okay, clear till now? The powers that we are talking about, how they are coming from the DPC Act. Okay, and this also gives DPC Act basically extends the power which are given under the Companies Act. See, the Companies Act talks about appointment of the auditor in the case of government company by CNAG. Same DPC Act extends that the audit of government companies and corporations, section 19, which says that the duties and powers of CNAG, okay, shall be performed and exercised by him in accordance with the provisions of old Companies Act. The reference is old, but now it has been 2013. Okay, so basically the purpose of this is to understand from where these powers are coming, from where everything is moving on with respect to the provisions of the audit of the public sector undertaking. And that's where we are talking about the term, the framework of government audit. Okay, the framework of the government audit, which includes the Article 148 to 151 plus your DPC Act, okay, plus your relevant provisions of the Companies Act with respect to the appointment of the auditor in case of a government company. So from here we are talking about how and in what way basically the audit framework is there. Clear? We'll not go in detail to the DPC Act, but just I'm talking about how the powers are flowing, how the framework for the audit is there in the DPC Act. Any doubt? Any doubt till now? Okay. So now when we talk about basically the powers and audit framework, we cannot leave the Companies Act behind. And we have already discussed about the section 245 of the Companies Act. Yes or no? Similarly, we have to understand section 139 with respect to the audit of the government companies. Okay, so let's go to section 139 first. And let's understand how the appointment of the auditor in case of government company is carried out. Okay, now if you see with respect to section 139, we are talking about subsection 5, subsection 6. Okay, subsection 5 says that in case of a government company, okay, or any other company owned and controlled indirectly or directly by central government or state government, or partly by the central government, partly by one of the more state government, CNAG, okay, shall appoint the auditor duly qualified to be appointed as an auditor for the companies. Okay, and within a period of 180 days from the commencement of the financial year. So 139(5) provides the powers to CNAG to appoint the auditor for the government company. And 7, that is 139(7), basically, okay, talks about the first auditor shall be appointed by the CNAG within 60 days from the date of registration of the company. Okay, so subsequent auditor 180 days, but in case of the first auditor, it has to be within 60 days. Okay, so that is how the auditors are required to be appointed for the government company. Clear? Now, that is section 139. And when I talk about respective basically provisions of the respective act, let's say for example NHAI. Okay, let's say for example NHAI or TRI. So they already have their respective provisions that make, provide that how their auditor may be appointed. If not, in that particular case, basically, the CNAG provisions are there. So, the respective provisions of the respective act will provide about the audit in case of the corporation. So when I talk about the NHAI or any other such, body that I'm talking about, which is formed under a specific provision or a law, over there, the law itself provides for the audit. Okay. In a lot of cases, the law itself provides for the audit, and accordingly, in that case, the audit is required to be done based on that particular law. Clear? I'll just show you something with respect to the, as you have discussed about the NHAI, let me show you something. Okay. Now, this is section 23. Now, section 23 of the NHAI Act. Okay. We are talking about this particular National Highway Authorities of India Act 1988. Because we took this example. There is a section 23 which talks about the accounts of the authority shall be maintained and audited in such manner in consultation with the CNAG. So for the public sector undertaking, you have the various provisions for the audit. Okay, various provisions for the audit. Okay, for the government company, you have section 139. Government company, we are talking about section 139 of Companies Act. For the departments, we are talking about articles of the Constitution, Article 151 of Indian Constitution. And for the respective bodies, okay, their respective act will contain the requirement of audit. Okay, so respective in this way, the audit framework is there, or the audit requirement is there. That is the initiation, or you can say starting point for the audit. Clear? Any doubt? Any doubt? Okay. If no doubt, then let us understand further with respect to the audit framework. Okay. We will understand something more with respect to the audit framework, how the audit is done. What is the audit framework for the, the audits which are done by the CNAG. And based on that, we will understand few things on this. Okay. Now, when I talk about audit being done by the CNAG, there are multiple types of audit that are being done. There are multiple types of audit that are being done by the CNAG. And there is an entire set of regulations which are issued by CNAG which talks about such audit, which talks about such kind of audit. Okay. So let's understand some aspect of it. I'll just show you those regulations and some aspect of those regulations. See, so there is something called the regulations on audit and accounts 2020. Okay, so basically these are the regulations on audits and account amendment 2020. Okay, So these are the new, you can say, sort of regulations, amendment regulations. Now what these regulations talks about, these regulations provide a lot of things with respect to the audit done by the CNAG. Okay, so mandate, from where the mandate comes for the audit. Okay, the broad objectives of the audit, types of the audit that are being done by CNAG, and that's where a very important point comes into the picture, the types of the audit. So first type of the audit that we need to understand, which is done by the CNAG, is the financial audit. Okay, financial audit that deals with determining whether an entity's financial statements and information is properly prepared, complete in all respect, and presented with the adequate disclosure in accordance with the prescribed financial reporting and regulatory framework, and is accomplished by obtaining sufficient and appropriate evidence to enable the auditor to express an opinion whether the financial statements and the information represents a true and fair view of the entity's financial situation and is free from material misstatement due to fraud and error. Normal financial statement audit that we talk about, for a normal audit, normal financial statement audit, is that one type of audit that is being performed by the CNAG. Second is the compliance audit. Okay. Second is the compliance audit. Let us understand something more. Third is the performance audit. And fourth, an audit which combines either or all some aspect of the financial, compliance, or performance audit, which combines multiple things. Okay. As of now, let us first understand the definition of the compliance audit. Now, what compliance audit is? Compliance audit is nothing but an independent assessment of whether a given subject matter, that is an activity, financial, non-financial transaction, information in respect of any entity or group of entities, complies in all material respect with the applicable laws, rules, regulations, codes, etc., and the general principles governing the sound public financial management and the conduct of public officials. Okay, that means compliance audit is kind of an audit where there's an independent assessment, okay, in which we see that there is this given subject matter and whether this subject matter complies with, okay, with the given set of laws, regulation, rules, and everything. So that's where the important part comes, is that here in this compliance audit, can anyone tell me what elements you can see? Like, one such element we are talking about is the subject matter. Okay. Can you tell me what are such other elements in this compliance audit? What are the other elements in this compliance audit that you can see? Criteria. Yes, absolutely correct. What else? Anyone? Apart from criteria, what else is there? Anything else that you can see that is relevant here? Any other part in the compliance audit or any other component you can identify? Ethical conduct. Okay. Yes, let's discuss further the elements of the compliance audit. See, when I talk about the compliance audit, okay, so here basically in this entire compliance audit, we need to understand first of all how this compliance audit is carried out. So first we are talking about the the subject matter which is there. Then we are talking about a comparison of that subject matter with a particular, let's say the direction, with a particular, you can say, law or a regulation. And then we are talking about basically towards sound financial practices, or the practices which are required to be followed by the public officials. Good practice we are talking about. Okay, so we are talking about some ethical conduct over here. So ethics is also we are talking about. So these are few things that we can as of now understand from the compliance audit. Okay, so that is one thing. Now let us understand the definition of basically performance audit. What performance audit is? So performance audit is an independent, objective, and reliable examination of whether government entities, institutions, operations, program, funds, activities, okay, are in operating in accordance with their principle of economy, efficiency, and effectiveness, whether there is a room for improvement. Very important. Let me highlight that again, we are talking about a particular entity, institution, operation, or program or funds of activity. That's a subject matter. That subject matter are operating in accordance with the principle of economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. And third point is whether there is a room for improvement. That is something we are talking about. And when we talk about the subject matter in the performance audit, we talk about the input, processes, outputs, outcome, and impacts. That means every aspect of that particular process. Okay. So this is just a basic understanding of these three types of audits. We will go and understand in detail in while in some time, but this is where we are talking about basic definition of these audits, and we will understand further comprehensive audit, proprietary audit, a lot of things we will understand. Okay, now when we talk about the public sector undertaking audit or the audit done for the purpose of public sector undertakings, we are not talking about something altogether new. See, when I talk about financial audit, it's a financial audit that we have already done. Yes, comprehensive performance, compliance may require something additional, but your audit fundamentals will never change. Okay, your audit fundamentals will be same as they were. So there are certain basic elements behind each and every public sector audit. There are some basic elements behind each and every public sector audit. Let's understand those basic elements behind each and every public sector audit. Okay, so public sector audit. Now we will go into the basic elements of PSU audit. Now, what are these basic elements? Basic elements are those elements or structure that will remain same irrespective of type of PSU audit. So I am talking about those elements or structure that is going to be same irrespective of your type of PSU audit. Okay. Now, when I talk about this kind of structure, can anyone tell me what do you think of the basic elements when I talk about? Like, what are the basic things or the common things in all these type of audits? So I'm talking about the common points. So common points in all PSU audits. So we are talking about something called parties involved. We are talking about auditors, responsible party, users. Yes, very good. So first of all, what we are talking about, three parties. that will be there always in the public sector audit. So the three parties. Okay, three-party system. Now these three parties will include your auditor, okay, will include your auditor, responsible party, and intended users. The party and intended users. Okay. Now, what are these responsible parties, and from where these intended users comes into the picture? Now, how to define who are the intended users and who are the responsible parties? Anyone? Who are the responsible parties? Who are the intended users? Anyone? Okay, yes, very good. Intended users. Our stakeholders are basically intended users. Okay. Then those charged with governance of the entity is a responsible party. Okay. Anything else you can think of the intended users and responsible party? Intended users or responsible party? Okay. Let me discuss in much more detail. Okay. When we talk about these kind of audits, okay, when we talk about a public sector audit, at that point in time, what we are talking about, there is a subject matter. And when we discussed about the compliance audit or the performance audit, when you go and see the type of the audit which are being performed, okay, let's go back and understand. So when we talk about this performance audit, we are talking about entities, institutions, operations, program, funds, or activities. We are talking about these as a subject matter. The entities, institutions, programs, okay, these are the subject matters who will be audited. Okay, so these are the responsible parties, okay, who are basically will be responsible for the purpose of audit. Okay, now the management, the board of directors, those charged with governance, or the head of these departments, or any person appointed as the chairman or president, basically will be the responsible parties. So responsible parties are the person who are responsible for the audit of that auditable entity, who are responsible for the audit of that auditable entity. So we will call these as the auditable entities. Okay, and any person who is responsible to get things audited, that will be known as a responsible party. Okay, so we will call these as an auditable entities, and their persons will be responsible party. So I'll write it over here: auditable entities. And this particular term, auditable entities, is also defined in these regulations itself. So it's not something that we are saying, but auditable entity is also defined in this regulation. That is, means union, state government, including its office, authorities, bodies, companies, so corporation, funds, other entities that are subject to the audit by CNAG of India. Okay, so these are the entities which are subject to the audit of this audit by the CNAG of India. So these are the auditable entities. Clear? Any doubt? Till now, any doubt that whatever we have discussed? Yes, no? Okay. Now, when we talk about the intended users, who are the intended users? Who are the intended users over here? That is very important. So first was the responsible parties, which is there in relation to the your auditable entity. So this is with respect to, this is required to be understood with respect to auditable entities. Now, when I talk about intended users, who are intended users? For whom the audit is performed, okay? Tell me who will be the intended users when the audit will be performed for, let's say, NHAI. When we talk about NHAI, who will be the intended users? Anyone? Like public, okay, public. Anyone else? Who will be the intended users when we are talking about, let's say, NHAI? Very important part, because this is where we need to understand, the third aspect of the, like, for whom the audit is being performed. Now, Government of India, Public Parliament. Okay, let me see. Let me show you something. So when I talk about intended users, let's say in case of NHAI. So what we am talking about, section 24 will tell me who are the intended users. Section 24 of the NHAI Act says that, just an example, that the annual report and the auditor's report to be laid as soon as maybe, okay, after they are received before the each house of the parliament. So it is for the House of Parliament. It will be laid before them. Okay, so you can say Parliament, House of Parliament, or the public at large. Through the Parliament, public at large will be the intended users of these reports. Now, a fun fact, most of you might have not gone through this much detail. Let me show you something, how these reports are presented. Just, for the purpose of understanding intended users. Okay. So this is the, website, official website of government of, like House of Parliament, so Lok Sabha, official website. Now, if I go to a particular date, let's say today's date, there was, a session of Parliament. And if you see the revised list of business, you will see something called reports of the Committee on Estimates. We will come on that in some time. But you will also see some reports which are required to be placed before the House of Parliament. So some reports are being placed over here. So I'll just show you reports of the Standing Committee on Finance. Okay, statements of the Standing Committee. Okay, and if I talk about papers to be laid, these are the papers to be laid on the House of the Lok Sabha, which includes a lot of things. So let me zoom in for you. Now, if you see over here, you can see that a copy of the annual report of a particular agency, New Delhi, for the year ended with this, with the audited accounts. Okay, a copy of the statement of half yearly review, whatever it is. I'm just talking about, on a top level, basically. Okay, report of the CNAG on India Union Government Railway Finances. Okay, so report of CNAG on the direct taxes compliance audit civil. Okay, now report of CNAG on Central Autonomous Body civil or compliance audit civil. Okay, so there are various reports which are placed in the House. Okay, for House of Parliament, for like they are the intended users, and the public at large, they are the intended users for the purpose, like when the report is placed over there. Okay, again, reports of CNAG, compliance on the fiscal responsibility, this act for the Department of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance. So we are talking about compliance of this particular act. Okay, audit under this particular act. So there are various things which are there. Okay, for example, this report of CNAG in case of compliance audit on taxation of unexplained transactions. Again, compliance audit civil. So this is the compliance audit. Similarly, there are different reports which are being placed, annual accounts, audit reports, everything, and then through that the public is the one who is the intended users at large who will get these reports. Okay, these are the papers to be laid, and this is I'm talking about today's papers. Okay, so that is the intended users I'm talking about now. These are the intended users for whom the audit is being performed. Is being performed, or who will be provided with this audit report. That is one element of the basic element, one of the basic element of the PSU audit. What is the second basic element of the PSU audit? What is the second basic element of the PSU audit? Anyone? This was the one that we were talking about. There will be different basic elements that we are talking about. What are the other basic elements? Anyone? Very important, because you need to understand the basic elements. We are just having an overview. We are not going into in depth, but this is where the fundamental things of the PSU audits are there. Basic elements we are talking about. To check economy, efficiency, and okay, that will come somewhere in the performance audit. We will see that subject matter criteria and information. Yes, subject matter criteria and information. We saw that, correct? Subject matter criteria and information, like how that is relevant with respect to the broader aspect of the audit. So for example, let's go with the compliance audit. Okay, so when I talk about the compliance audit is something relevant with the rules, regulations, compliance of the subject matter. So here we see that the subject matter, basically whatever is there, has complied with the rules, laws, or regulations or not. In performance audit, we see the input, output, everything is compliance, is appropriate from the purpose of economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. Okay, so we measure these things, that how the compliance is being done, or how the performance is being done. Okay, so these things are measured. So this is first of all the subject matter we are talking about. Okay, the subject matter, that is basically which is being audited. What is the thing that we are trying to audit over here? That's the important part. Okay, so the second basic element category, I would say, is the subject matter, your criteria, and your information. So first of all, subject matter. Okay, first of all, subject matter. And when we talk about the subject matter, is the thing that is being audited. In case of a financial audit, what is subject matter? In case of a financial audit, what is the subject matter? Yes, very good. Financial statements. Financial statements are the subject matter which is basically audited in case of the financial audit. Yes or no? So in case of financial audit, the subject matter is nothing but your financial statements. Correct? Okay. Now, then if I talk about subject matter criteria, so subject matter, let's say, thing which is being audited. When I talk about subject matter criteria, what do you mean by subject matter criteria in case of a financial audit? What do you mean by subject matter criteria? In case of a financial audit, what is the criteria? Anyone? What is the criteria when I talk about subject matter criteria? Asset liability? No. True and fair view? No. I'm talking about criteria. Very important. Criteria. What is criteria in case of a financial audit? Can anyone tell me? Percentage of profits? No. I'm not talking about that criteria. That criteria is something different. What is criteria? Come on, quickly. Subject matter criteria. What are those criteria? Anyone? Okay. So basically, when I talk about subject matter criteria, it is the criteria against which basically you evaluate the subject matter. That means that, for example, my financial statement is there. Against what I am going to evaluate the financial statement? What is the benchmark over here for my financial statement? What is the benchmark that I'm talking about that I will use to measure my financial statement? When I say measure, that is basically kind of, that whether my financial statement are appropriate or not. In order to say my financial statements are appropriate or not, what is the subject matter criteria? So benchmark kind of thing. So for a financial statement, the benchmark will be nothing but your applicable financial reporting framework. You will use that framework to see that whether your financial statements are appropriate or not. Okay, that is the criteria, correct? I will see that whether the applicable financial reporting framework is being used to display, to report the state of affairs of the company. Books of accounts provide the transactions, but how to report those transactions in an appropriate way? So see, when I talk about accounting transactions or books of accounts are also required to be maintained in basis of the Ind AS or accounting standards, which is being part of your accounting framework. So the accounting framework and the financial reporting framework, okay, basically is the criteria or the benchmark that you will use to measure the financial statements. Then only you will be able to say the whether what is the uh, outcome of it. Now, what is subject matter information? Anyone? The third point, subject matter information. Subject matter information, quickly. What is subject matter information? Anyone? Outcome? Yes, outcome. In case of a financial statements, audit, what is the outcome? What do you call the outcome of the audit of a financial statement? What do you call the outcome? Very good. Yes, opinion. So that is the subject matter information, the outcome, the opinion on the financial statement. In compliance audit, in performance audit, the opinion may differ, the outcome may differ. It's not the plain opinion of true and being true and fair. There are multiple things over there, but that is the subject matter information. Clear with this? Now, most of you will say, sir, that from where these things are coming, how we are discussing these things, like subject matter condition, subject matter information, from where it is written this? Can anyone tell me? We are discussing this, but why? We are discussing this, but why? Anyone? Why we are discussing this? Can anyone tell me why we are discussing with this? Where it is written that I'm saying to you? In the CNAG Act? No. It's not in the CNAG Act. You should be aware from where these things are coming. Remember the regulations that we are talking about. Over there is something called Chapter 10 of these regulations. Okay, guiding principles and of auditing standards. Guiding principles of auditing standard. Over there is an element of public sector auditing. Regulation 126. I'm talking about law now. Okay, I'm talking about law basically. And again, just to show you the name of the regulations again, these are the regulations on audit and accounts amendments 2020. Regulations on audits and accounts amendment 2020. Earlier, before this, if you go on the website, okay, of the CNAG, there were regulations which were of 2007, if I'm not wrong. Let me show you. So audit regulations, yeah. So 2007, before this version, there was a 2007 regulations, okay, which were amended from time to time. But these were the regulations, earlier version of regulation on audit and account 2007. Then in 2020, these regulations were amended, and now we have a 2020 regulations on audits and accounts. So this is a basically regulation which talks about how audit is being performed, the basic elements and everything. And over there in these regulation itself, these basic elements are discussed. The framework is discussed, and we will see everything. We will correlate everything. We will come to every part of the regulation, and we will discuss that, like which is relevant. So when we talk about this regulation 126 talks about the elements of public sector auditing, and over there we have this three party, the subject matter, the types of engagement, and the confidence and assurance in the public sector auditing and level of assurance. But before we deep dive, let's understand this third element of the basic element of public sector auditing, type of engagement, attestation and direct reporting. Attestation and direct reporting. So can anyone tell me what is difference between both attestation and direct reporting? Anyone? What do you mean by attestation or direct reporting? Quickly, reasonable conclusion under attestation. Okay. What else? What else is there apart from reasonable conclusion. What is direct reporting? What is direct reporting? Quickly. Just if anyone knows anything about direct reporting. Only evaluation. Okay. Only evaluation. Anything else you guys may think of direct reporting? Anything else that you can think of direct reporting? Yes, no? Not assurance or conclusion. Okay. Not assurance or conclusion. Okay. Kind of, yes. If I talk about direct reporting, it is the kind of the reporting where, you know, the relevant information is directly provided rather than doing the audit. It is not the any assurance or any any conclusion is given. Only the reporting is done. Only the information is supplied by performing relevant procedures by the auditors. Okay. So here the auditors perform relevant procedures and they report directly to the relevant person whomsoever has appointed them. So that's the direct reporting basically. Okay. So audit engagement includes these type of attestation and direct reporting. Okay. Clear? These are the basic we are talking about with respect to the elements of the public sector undertaking, audit of public sector undertaking. Now, let's understand the principles of the public sector undertaking audit and principles related to the audit process. One more interesting thing I would like to tell you that when we talk about the definition of the audit engagement under these regulations, okay, let me show you the definition of audit engagements. So when we talk about the term audit engagement under regulation 211, it talks about that audit engagement will include individual audit assignment in the nature of either attestation engagements or direct reporting engagements covering financial audit, compliance audit, performance audits, or a combination of these. That means when you talk about compliance, performance, or combination, they may be the attestation or the direct reporting. Okay, that's the definition of the audit engagement under the regulation also. Okay. Now, further, the regulation does not dwell into what is direct reporting, how direct reporting is required to be done, all those things. But yeah, this is the basically, the definition which is given. Okay. Now, we will understand the principles of the public sector undertaking audit. Now, why these principles are required and what these principles are for. When you do a public sector undertaking audit, these principles are required to be followed. Not because they are principles, because they are also part of your law. They are also part of the regulations. Okay, regulations requires you to follow these principles. Regulation 127 of these regulations that I'm talking about talks about basically principles relating to the public sector auditing and principles related to the audit process. Okay. So when I talk about general principles, so it divides into two categories: general principles, okay, of public sector auditing, and principles related to the audit process. There are two types of things: general principles and the principles related to the audit process. When I talk about general principles, we already know a lot of things about this. We are talking about, that independence, professional judgment, due care, skepticism, quality control, audit team management and skill, audit risk, materiality, documentation, communication, as given in the auditing standard. As given in the auditing standard. This is the basic principles that we have discussed. Okay, you are also aware about these basic principles. We will not go into much detail of these. And when we talk about auditing standards, okay, so auditing standards we already know. Yes or no? Auditing standards. So the principles which are given in the auditing standards, and at a lot of places we need to understand these auditing standards can bit differ for the public sector undertaking. Okay, can bit differ for the public sector undertaking. Okay, now when I talk about auditing standards, auditing standards basically here in these particular regulations is something which are issued by the CNAG. So CNAG issues these standards. They are on the kind of similar lines, okay, which are issued by the institute. Okay, and then on the basis of that, these are the basic elements which are required to be followed. So there is nothing different that we understand. But when we talk about principles related to the audit process, again this is same audit process that we are talking about and we have seen in the audit, which includes your planning, establishment of terms of audit, obtaining understanding of the entity, conducting risk assessment, materiality, identifying risk of fraud, developing an audit plan, okay, conducting the audit, performing the planned audit procedures, evaluating audit evidence, reporting follow-up, prepare a report, and follow up on the reported matters. So if I talk about these things, can anyone tell me the relevant essay according to this planning? What is the relevant essay? Relevant essay, or you can say the number of the essay which is relevant to this particular area of the audit. Planning, 200. Yes, very good. Essay 200. Okay, generally we are talking about. Then plus 300, essay 300 is also talking about planning. Yes, very good. Then establishing the terms of audit engagement. Yes, very good. Essay 210, agreeing the terms of audit engagement. Obtaining the understanding of the entity and conducting risk assessment. This is one standard. Essay 315. Yes, essay 315. Determining the materiality. Materiality. Essay 320. Very good. Fraud. Identifying the risk of fraud. Essay 240. Yes. Developing an audit plan. Developing an audit plan. Come on, quickly. This is something 300 plus 315 plus 330, because when I talk about plan, you plan in essay 300, but something with respect to the a lot of things we discuss in 315 and 330 also. So base is a 300 only plan. Conducting an audit. Conducting an audit quickly. Which essay is irrelevant? Or performing the planned audit procedures to audit to get the audit evidence. Same. Essay 500 series. 500 to 580. Evaluate audit evidence. Evaluate audit evidence. 450. Yes. Prepare report. Essay 700. So this is something we already understood. This is something we already know. Just we need to see how it is required to be applied for the purpose of public sector undertaking. It's applied in a similar manner. Clear? Any doubt? So the general principles and principles related to the audit procedures. There are two types of things, and then planning and everything we have understood. Yes or no? Any doubt till now? No? Okay. See, again, there are further, procedures given which are required to be considered. For example, there is a chapter 11 in these regulations also, which talks about what you need to do in the planning, what you need to do with respect to the advance intimation for the audit, provision of facilities for conducting an audit, then meeting with officers in charge, issuing audit requisitions, replying to the audit queries. We will discuss this in bit, but this is just an overview we need to understand. Okay, meeting with officers, forms of communication, then communication of draft report. Okay, and then reply to the draft report is there, communication for the finalized paragraph, form and content and time submission of the audit report. So what should be the form, general form of the audit reports? Okay, all these things. And then the follow-up is there. There are basic things already provided in the regulation itself. Okay, basically provided in the regulation itself, that how the planning is required to be done, how the entire audit process is required to be carried out. Okay, basic things already given in these regulations. Now, we need to understand in a specific way various type of audits and how they are given in the regulation itself. Okay, so we start with the compliance audit. Okay, there is a chapter 6 of these regulations which talks about broad framework of the financial compliance and performance audit. See, financial audit, we already know at a good detail. We will take up first of all the compliance audit, and then we will take up rest of the type of audits like performance audit, and then comprehensive and a lot of things. So when I talk about compliance audit, okay, when I talk about compliance audit, can anyone tell me, like, we have seen the definition of the compliance audit, that we are talking about some subject matter, evaluation of the subject matter with respect to the criteria and all those things. Okay, but in actual, what you do in the compliance audit? Can someone tell me more about the compliance audit? Let's say, for example, what is subject matter in the compliance audit? What is the subject matter in the compliance audit? Subject matter I'm talking about. I'm talking about the subject matter. What is the subject matter in the compliance audit? Anyone? Let's understand this by seeing one of the compliance audit report. Okay, let's see a compliance audit report, and then on the basis of that, let's understand how these reports are there. Okay, let us see. Let me open a compliance audit report. Let's go to the portal itself and let us see a compliance audit report over here. Let me filter out on the compliance, search. Okay, so these are various compliance audit reports which are there. We will pick up one compliance audit report out of this, and then we will discuss that particular compliance audit report. So let's pick up this one, Central Autonomous Body Compliance Audit, Civil. Or if you want, we can go for the finance department. Let's take up a very good one, which was there. I think income tax something was there. We already saw, okay, on the portal, but let's see if it is available over here. We can pick that one also. And that will be very helpful for us to understand. It's indirect taxes. Okay, let's take this one. So report of the CNAG of India for period end March 23, government audit, Department of Revenue, indirect taxes, goods and service tax report. compliance audit. Let's download the report and go through this report. Okay. This is the compliance audit report. Again, now these reports are, as I said, will be laid okay, on the House of the Parliament, and then it will be made available to the public through the Parliament. Okay, so let's see the content first of all, a bit of content of this report. So there is a chapter 1 which talks about indirect taxes, administration and revenue trends. Chapter 2 talks about something called audit mandate, audit universe and response to the audit. Chapter 3 talks about various things. Okay, so let's go the first one, or chapter 2 as of now. We'll not go to the chapter 1, we'll start with the chapter 2. Okay, let me, it's not working. Okay, it's visible now. So let's talk about chapter 2. We'll go to the chapter 2, compliance audit. Okay, now what they are saying, examination of the system, procedures and their efficacy. Okay, examination of the system, procedures and their efficacy. Audit of receipts includes an examination of the system, procedure and their efficacy, mainly in respect of all these aspects. Okay, and what are these aspects? Identification of potential tax assessees, ensuring compliance with the laws, exercise of discretionary power, appropriate action to the safeguard of interest of the government, measures introduced to strengthen or improve revenue administration, amount that may have fallen into the arrears, and action taken for the recovery and the pursuit of the claims. This is audit of indirect tax systems. Okay, audit universe, they are saying this audit universe means like the entity they are talking about, Department of Revenue, CBIC. Okay, and their subordinate organization. So what is the subject matter, or like, you know, responsible person, or what is being audited over here? So CBIC, that is the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, their zones, their commission rate, all these things are being audited. Okay, divisions, ranges, audit samples and audit efforts and the products. We will come in that sometime. Response of the department, follow-up reports, response by the ministry. Okay, now effectiveness of the compliance verification mechanism under GST. Now we will not go into the GST, but what they are doing here is the subject matter is nothing but the law, or you can say the activities of the department. Okay, that they are seeing whether that activity of the department or the law is being complied, is being followed in an appropriate way. Okay, so what is the law? Section 59 of the CGST Act, every person registered shall self-assess the tax payable. I'll not go into the GST. You might be already looking into some other subject, but what they are saying is, okay, now this chapter brings out the effectiveness of the compliance verification mechanism of the department in respect of the taxpayers under composition levy scheme, in addition to the department's overall performance with the respect to internal audit during FY23. That means they are seeing that how department is performing the monitoring, okay, departmental monitoring mechanism in case of taxpayers under composition levy scheme. They are looking with the law, they are seeing what is the requirement of the law and how the department is performing in front of that. What is the audit objective over here is? Audit objective is to evaluate the effectiveness of the existing departmental monitoring mechanism, and then adequacy of the remedial action taken by the department. And what they are talking about, the scope is CBIC, ACE, GST system and verification systems. Okay, sample they have taken, audit findings are there, and accordingly they have provided like what are the audit findings. Okay, details have been given accordingly. So whatever non-compliances they have identified, okay, whatever it is, inadequate and everything. So where they have missed with the compliance with the relevant laws. Okay, so all those things they have prescribed. that shows that how much department's mechanism was in line with the law, whether they were complying with the law with respect to the mechanism or not. Okay, a lot of things are there in that. I will not go into the details, but that is one thing. Okay, then departmental oversight on GST payments and return filing. So again, legal framework. They are seeing this is a legal framework under which they are checking the compliance. How much compliance the department is following to the law. Okay, so they are understanding the compliance of the law. If I talk about again the objectives of the audit, whether the rules, procedures are designed to secure an effective check on tax compliance as per the law, whether the scrutiny procedures and other compliance functions of the departmental field formations are adequate and effective as per the law, like whether they are as per the law or not, legal framework, and accordingly everything is being studied. This is for the Department of Revenue. This is how the compliance audit is done. Okay, audit samples are taken and then the audit is being performed. So when I talk about compliance audit, what they are doing is compliance audit basically is concerned with two things: regularity and proprietary. Regularity is a adherence to the formal criteria or the provisions of the constitution or law or regulation. For example, GST related, just now we saw that the law requires that department has to do monitoring for the composite, or there should be appropriate compliance with the return filing. How the department is doing on that particular area. Proprietary observance of the general principle governing sound financial management and the conduct of public officials. If we go back to the report itself, okay, can we say this is something proprietary in the nature, that the scrutiny procedures and other compliance function of the departmental field formations are adequate and effective? And if I just show you, see, lack of proper documentation to monitor compliances, oversight on return filing, oversight on tax payments. So there is a oversight which is done by the department as claimed in the report. Okay, so there are other things in the picture. You will read the report, you will come to know what I am much more detail why there is a oversight and all those things. Okay, but there is something, conduct of the public officers also, public officials who are involved in this, GST officials, the respective zone departments and everything. Okay, I'm not going into much detail, but as of now, inadequate efforts to recovery dues, proprietary in nature. Okay, they should have taken the efforts to recover the dues. Okay, again, there are recommendations provided from time to time, but just as of now, not going into the recommendations. Just I'm talking about what was identified and what is being talked about, and how the proprietary things can come into the picture. Let's see one of more compliance audit report to gather much more understanding. So instead of only finances, let's see if other compliance audit reports with respect to the bodies. Okay, let's say let us see some some local body or some particular department, and on the basis of that we will understand, we will be able to understand in much more detail. So if there is a local body or something, then it will be very helpful to understand, or specifically a scheme, because scheme related compliance audit reports are very better to understand with respect to any of the particular area. Let me go on the home screen back. Let's see all the reports, and over there let's select one of the report. So this is the Central Autonomous Bodies Compliance Audit Report Civil. Okay, let us select this one. Let me open this report. Again, similar lines. This report will also show you all these things. This is on the Central Autonomous Bodies, various Central Autonomous Bodies, various. Okay, and let's see. This is the introduction chapter about this report overview. We will start with the chapter 2, okay, which is something with respect to one of the body. So I'll skip chapter 1 entirely and go for the chapter 2. Okay. Because chapter 1 is kind of a summary. Let's not go into the summary. Let's start from the chapter 2. This is one such body. This is one such body. They are talking about delay in construction of go down and sales office due to allotment of non-existing and encumbered plot. So they will study everything. Okay, the case they will study. Okay, and despite assurance and everything, there was something, some disputes. Everything was happening, and on the basis of that, what they will do is they will say that what is the instance over here. Like there were some issues, some things that were not done appropriately, proprietary in nature, that we are again talking about. Okay, because of that, there were losses which were suffered. Could be like that way. So, for example, lack of due diligence by this particular academy in ascertaining the status of the plot. Okay, leading to thrice leading to blocking of 83.07 lakhs paid to DDA. Okay, for the plot, and 15.52 crore released to CPWD for construction. So there is a blocking of this much amount, proprietary in nature, because they have not used the public funds appropriately. Spend this much lakh on the shifting electricity water supply lines, which should have been borne by some other person. So they spend this much amount they were not supposed to spend. And let's go to the compliance audit. It is the observance of the principles, general principles, or principles governing the sound financial management and the conduct of public officials. Okay, sound financial management and the conduct of public officials. That's where they lack. Okay, that's where they lack. That, for example, their activities should be judicious and wise. Okay, proprietary with prudence, but it was not there. Because of that, there was a waste. Okay, misuse, mismanagement, errors, frauds, irregularities. These are the things that are being highlighted in the compliance audit, that involves the examination of rules, regulations. Okay, whether these are intra-virus, that means outside the authority of that particular body, whether this sufficiently or comprehensively ensure effective control of the government receipt expenditure, or whether they safeguard against the losses due to this. We are talking about the adequacy, legality, okay, transparency. We are talking about the proprietary and the prudence. And there could, if there is a non-compliance, then non-compliance is looked into from that perspective. So this is the compliance audit we are talking about. Any doubt with respect to the compliance audit? Any doubt with respect to the compliance audit that we have discussed? So this was one just example that we were discussing about the compliance audit, that there was some spending which was supposed to be done, which was not supposed to be done, but they have done. Okay. One such again example I will show you is of compliance audit or the compliance issue. See, utilization of funds received for the purpose of paying stipend to the SC/ST candidates toward the payment of stipend. Okay. Now, this fund was used for the payment to the stipend to the candidates from general category. which is the violation of the instructions in the grant releasing order by the Niti Aayog guidelines. So there's a violation of the guidelines which is issued by the Niti Aayog, compliance aspect. So they have not followed the law. So like this way, compliance audit goes on the proprietary in the nature also, goes on the law side also. For example, intravirus, whether it is in the permission to do that. One best example, the Central Institute of Technology, this is, or the Institute of Technology Guwahati, Institute of Technology Bombay, reimbursed 1.34 crores to its faculty members for procurement of laptop, desktop, tablets, devices, everything. Okay. Under the cumulative professional development allowance, which was irregular as expense of this nature were not permitted under CPDA. So when there is a non-compliance with the, with respect to the things which are permitted under CPDA. Second, intravirus. That means they were not having permission to do these kind of reimbursements. Still, they have done it. Okay. So various aspects of the compliance audit we are looking over here. For example, again, if you talk about sound, basically, prudence, public financial management, irregular reimbursement of leave encashment to hiring agencies resulting in loss of 76.31 lakh. So these are the kind of, things that, are there in case of the compliance audit which are identified. Manish, are you talking about this one point? Are you talking about this point? See, when I talk about the compliance audits, okay, that means intravirus or ultravirus. That means within the permission of the law or outside the permission of law. So, first of all, when you do not follow the law, okay, over here you are talking about that, okay, there is a non-compliance to a law or regulation that is not within the permission of the law. So that is ultravirus also, plus there is a non-compliance to the law. Whom suffer against the law? Which responsible party? No, I cannot get your question. Can you, ask again in much more detail? So basically, there was some reimbursement which was not permitted as per the law. There was reimbursement of this much crore, which was irregular as expense of this nature and was not permitted for the reimbursement. So these kind of, reports are there which are issued by the CNA. Action, yes, then, CNAG presents this report and, we will discuss what happens when these reports are presented and then what is done further. So we will discuss that in some time. So what is the next step of these reports? Okay. Any other doubt as of now? Any other doubt? So here only summaries are given in these reports. Detailed, information is being presented to the various authorities. So we will see that in some time what happens at the next step, and we will understand further on that. Any other doubt? No? If no further doubts, let's take a quick 10-minute break. After the break, we'll gather back and continue the session. Okay, let's take a break. Sir, what I was suggesting Hello everyone, welcome back. Let's continue the discussion. So we will discuss about basically we are talking about next type of audit. We will go and understand the next type of audit. This is very important audit. Okay. So in the next of audit, they are into performance audit. So before I go and perform a deep dive into the performance audit, okay, can anyone tell me, like in performance audit, we have discussed, like you have briefly discussed about the three aspects: economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. What economy means? Can anyone tell me what is economy? How do you define economy? In performance audit, what is economy? Anyone? What we are talking about economy in performance audit? Quickly. We are talking about economy. What is economy? Anyone? See, it's very important to understand that how and in what manner the performance audit is carried. Okay, what is difference between the performance compliance audit is the aspects that are being looked into the performance audit versus the aspects which are being looked into the compliance audit. Okay, so if I talk about performance audit, then what is the different thing I'm looking into that? Let's understand from the perspective of a report. Okay, a compliance audit report issued by the CNAG. Now, this report is basically on the implementation of a particular project, okay, metro rail project in a particular city. Okay, now this is the performance audit, commercial. That means it will include the commercial aspect and the performance audit of that aspect. Again, there are chapters divided into this particular audit report: introduction, scope, methodology, planning. Okay, we'll start with the chapter 2. We'll go to the chapter 2. We'll not go to the chapter 1 introduction. We'll go to the chapter 2. Because chapter 1 is kind of an executive summary of that particular thing, whatever is there, the subject matter. Okay. So as of now, we'll not go into that, but we will go to the chapter 2. So when we talk about chapter 2 of this particular audit report, it talks about scope. Scope, that means what is covered in that, the subject matter itself. Audit objectives. That's where we need to understand. This is very important. Audit objectives. What they're talking about. Audit objectives of the performance audit were to examine and assess whether planning was done in a rational manner, to ensure economic viability and the selection of the most appropriate technologies, implementation in terms of the project execution, okay, and contract management was done with due care, economy, and in timely and transparent manner. Operation and maintenance was efficient and planned effective and efficient, and the planned benefits were achieved after commercial operations. So if you see briefly, we are talking about three elements over here. Okay. One, we are talking about economic viability. We are talking about project execution, contract management, due care, and the economy. Okay. We are talking about, then again, the operation and maintenance was efficient and was planned benefit. So there are few things that we are talking about in this performance audit. When I talk about economy of the performance audit, or the term economy, that means I'm talking about the principle of minimizing the cost of resources. That the resources should be used in the available due time in an appropriate quantity or quality at the best price. Okay, so the resources should be used, okay, in a manner which is appropriate with the best price, okay, with the minimizing cost. So what they are talking about, when I talk about economy, that is the project execution and the contract management was done with the due care and the economy. That means that it has to be done with the minimum cost in the appropriate time. That's the economy means. Okay. Then comes the second aspect, is the efficiency, that I get the most out of from the available resource. First is the minimizing the cost of resource, economy. Second is the getting most from it. Okay, that's the efficiency. And third is the effectiveness of meeting the objective. Meeting the objective, achieving the intended result, which is there for that particular project. For example, when I talk about here the efficiency means that what benefit I am getting, is it maximum benefit, okay, from that particular project. The resources that I'm using, am I getting maximum benefit out of it? And the third one is the effectiveness. That means whether the project was effective for which it was built. So let's understand over here. And not necessary that all the things are considered of the performance, but majority all the things are considered, but not necessarily every time. Now see, this is the audit criteria. Remember, subject matter criteria and subject matter information. This is the audit criteria. The agenda, minutes, board of meetings, meetings of board of directors, detailed project reports, Metro Railway Act, okay, and their Metro Railway policy, rules. Then Karnataka Transparency in Public Procurement Act, guidelines, directions, rules, regulations, manuals, guidelines, directions, policy issued by BMRCL. Okay, a lot of things are there. Terms and conditions of the contract. This is the criteria, subject matter criteria and subject matter information. Okay, and if you see, I'll show you some of the the things which are reported over here. So if I talk about this particular performance audit report, just one thing we will discuss quickly over here is that when we talk about efficiency, that is the getting best out of it. Okay, that we are getting the best out of whatever resources we have. So for example, let's understand something, that the in this example, the platform screen doors, also known as the performance edge doors, used at the metro to separate the platform from trains, okay, act as a physical barrier. Okay, mainly in the case of this is this heating, ventilation. PDS also maintain climate control. This is this. The authority has not considered installing PSDs in phase 1, despite project savings of 6.58 crore per annum in the cost of air conditioning and maintenance cost. That means there was something, the objective, okay, means there were resources available, 6.58 crores. Have we got best out of it? Have we utilized this in the best manner so that we can get the best outcome, the effectiveness? Not only reducing the cost, but if we have reduced the cost, whatever resources are available, have we used them in a manner that is giving us the best output? If there was a saving, they could have installed and used that fund for some other purpose. That was the best outcome, the efficiency. Okay. Then if you see over here that estimation of the ridership should be realistic based on the comprehensive mobility plan, and this is all these things. So estimation of the ridership should be appropriate. Okay, this includes the impact of integration of the existing routes, fare integration, and all those things. That means when you talk about the effectiveness of the project, you have to understand whether the project have achieved the results or not. So when you do a plan for that, that achievement should be appropriate. Okay, and accordingly, all the things are there in this particular report. So this is one of the performance audit report. And if I talk about the regulation itself, when I talk about the performance audit, regulation talks about economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. So economy means that the principle of getting or minimizing the cost. When I talk about efficiency, means getting the most from the available resources. Okay, you need to deploy the resources you already have. And the effectiveness is the meeting the objective set and achieving the intended results in terms of output or outcomes. That means if you plan to achieve this much ridership from the metro, whether you achieved it or not, that's the output or outcome. Okay. So that is the performance audit, three basic criteria that are even given under the regulations. Clear? Any doubt till now? Any doubt? Now, how to perform the performance audit? What is required to be done, and how the performance audit is performed? Simple. Let's understand through the help of report only. The report, performance audit report we have also provides audit methodology, what they have done to perform the report, to perform the audit. See, this is the audit methodology in the report itself. What they are saying, that there was an entry conference wherein they decided the audit objectives, scope, criteria, methodology. Okay. They issued audit requisitions, questionnaires. Okay. They reviewed the records. They had discussion with the management from time to time. They collected visual evidence. Site inspections were done. Okay. Issues of queries, obtaining replies on the audit queries, and then they issued the draft report. This is how they did the entire audit. They explained this everything. Okay. Then they have a structure of audit report and everything. Basically, if you see what they are saying, that as a normal audit process that we do, that we perform, we plan, then we perform everything. Similar way that they have done here also. So also regulation also provides that how to perform the audit, performance audit. If we talk about the regulation, it says that first of all, you need to identify the measurable objectives, performance indicators. Okay, so there should be some criteria to measure the objectives and performance indicators. That is the responsibility of the departments. The responsibility for the development of these objectives and performance indicator lies with the head of entities or government departments. Okay, as an auditor, we need to review the measurable objectives and performance indicators. So auditor will review whatever development has been done by the respective department. Then there will be interaction with auditable entity. You need to hold entry conference. Okay. Nominate an officer for the coordination and cooperation with the audit. Holding exit conference. Like exit conference is kind of, before closing of the audit, and furnishing of reply by the department for internal audit, all those things. So some basic things which are already given under the regulation also. But on an overall level, if you know the normal audit, this is not something different. It is same. You do the planning, you do the relevant task which is there in the audit. For example, preparing of the planning, understanding of the objective over here. In audit, we understand the entity. Here we need to understand the objective of that particular activity, function, or whatever it is. Okay. You need to identify the subject matter, the criteria. Okay. You need to perform the discussions. And then field work, questionnaires. And accordingly, you prepare your draft report and then you provide that. This is how the performance audit is done. Any doubt till now with respect to the performance audit? Any doubt? Yes, no? If no, then let's take a particular question, okay, and understand this with the help of question. Because we will have to write the answer of the questions in the exam. So there's a question. RST Limited, a public sector company engaged in the power generation, has recently completed 5 years of operations. The board of directors have requested an audit to evaluate not only the accuracy of the financial statement, but efficiency of the operations, adequacy of the internal controls, and overall performance of the company. Preliminary review shows several projects experience cost overrun compared to approved budgets. Some plants are operating below installed capacities. Raw material fuel consumption exceeds standard norms and inventory management appears weak. Identify the type of audit suitable in this scenario and suggest the key issues that the auditor should examine during such type of audit and considering the company's operational and financial activity. Okay, this is very important because first of all, we need to identify what kind of audit we have to perform. What kind of audit do you think we need to perform in this scenario? Anyone? What kind of audit we need to perform in this scenario? Anyone? No? Okay. See, you need to identify that by understanding the object, understanding the issues which are there. So link the issues with respective areas. So first of all, several project experience cost overrun compared to approved budgets. That means there is some issue with respect to, like there is overspending, proprietary in nature. Okay, so prudence we are talking about, or proprietary in nature. Sound public, we understood that there should be sound practice followed by the respective public officials. Now, in this case, it's a government company. Okay, so accordingly, we need to understand that the employees of this government company, they have to follow, okay, sound financial management principles. So their conduct should be ethical. Now, in this particular case, there is a cost overrun. So we are talking about prudence and that financial management, sound financial management. Some plants are operating below capacity, installed capacity. It's the operational side. So something related to the performance. And if I talk about the specific aspect of the performance, when they say operating below installed capacity, that means I should get the maximum out of my resource. Not the cost minimization, maximum benefit of the cost. That is the efficiency. And third, raw material and the fuel consumption exceed the standard norm and inventory management appears weak. Again, raw material and fuel consumption basically appear exceeding the standard norms and inventory management is a weak. This is again the sign of, you can say, mix of compliance plus performance. Why? Because raw material and fuel consumption exceed the standard norms. Okay, that is kind of a compliance related because they are exceeding the norms, that is not being used appropriately. Inventory management appears to be weak, means it is not able to achieve the objective. Somewhere I will go to the performance also. Okay, so I am getting both out of it, compliance, performance. So instead of performing two audit, what I will do is I'll perform the comprehensive audit. Which combines all the aspects. So board of directors, and in the question itself, what they are saying is board of directors has required an audit to evaluate not only the accuracy of the financial statement, but efficiency of the operations, adequacy of the internal controls, and overall performance of the company. There are multiple aspects involved. So I can see the financial aspect, I can see the performance aspect, I can see the compliance aspect. As a result, it will be comprehensive. Combined audit, because already in the question itself is given. So when you get this kind of thing, you need to understand there are multiple things. Yes, as a result, I will perform multiple type of audit, comprehensive audit. So identify the type of suitable audit, comprehensive. Now, second is suggests the key issues that the auditor should examine during such type of audit, considering the company's operational and financial activity. So we are talking about comprehensive audit. Again, see, when I talk about comprehensive, it is a combination of what you have understood. Okay, it is a combination of the whatever you have understood. But if I talk about what issues you will examine in this, straightforward, trust me. Half of the things are already given in the question. So the areas are already given in the question, and on the basis of that, you need to examine the areas. For example, first, several project experienced cost overrun compared to the approved budgets. In this scenario, what questions you will ask? What areas you will consider in this? Let's talk about cost overrun compared to budget. What questions you will ask from the management? I will ask the management, tell me, how do you approve the budgets? How do you approve the planned cost? Because here, if there is a cost overrun, there could be two things. One, either your budgets not are appropriate, or your expenditure is happening in excess. So if the expenditure is happening in excess, what is the reason for that? Is there any evidence that there is an unnecessary expenditure? If not, then how are you approving your budgets? Is your budget in line with the overall cost of project? Number two, is your budget approved? Was your budget prepared appropriately? That was the first thing, yes or no? Then we are talking about with respect to the cost overrun. Okay, and then we are talking about underutilization of installed capacity. So I will ask management, what was your plan? Because first I have a question on your budgets. Then tell me, what was your plan capacity? You are saying there is an underutilization. What was your plan capacity? Okay. If you say there is a shortfall, what do you think? Why there is a shortfall? What has caused it? I will examine that. I will ask the question and examine these things. Okay. What is the rate of return that is being achieved from the activities? Because again, now the question goes on the there is a weak internal controls. There is purchase which is happening in excess of the planned purchases. So I will ask the question, management, tell me, you are saying there is a has caused weak internal control. Which controls have to more than the plan? Okay, or all these questions. And let us see the answer also. Let us see the answer also. Okay, so okay, so this is the answer. As I said, we discussed about that it will be a comprehensive audit, efficiency cum performance audit. Okay, the areas covered in the comprehensive audit. Just a minute. I think there is some issue. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So as I said, this is a comprehensive audit, performance cum efficiency audit. And because there are multiple things involved in this, that's why we are considering this performance cum audit. Number two, the questions or the areas that we will examine over here. Okay. The questions or the areas that we will examine. So if you see overall cost of capital, Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think there is some technical glitch. Just give me a minute. Just a second. Just a minute. Sorry for the technical glitch.
Okay, sir. No issue.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, let's continue. Sorry for the technical glitch. So yeah, we were talking about these questions that will be asked, like how does the overall cost of capital of the project is there compared with the approved plan cost? Is it approved? If you say there is a excess cost, then do you have any evidence or the of unnecessary expenditure? What is the planned production or operational output? Okay, whether that has been achieved. If there is a shortfall, then what has caused it? Then what is the planned rate of return, whether it has been achieved, entire project related. Okay, then are there systems of project formulation and execution have sound? That means, is there a sound practice? Okay, is there any adequacy? Because we are talking about weak internal controls. Are cost measures adequate? Because we are talking about cost overruns. Okay, and we are talking about excess usage of the raw materials. So, is there any wastage in the raw material? Are the purchase policy adequate, or is it leading to pile up of the inventory, resulting in redundancy in the stores and spares? Why? Because you purchase more. If you purchase more, then what is your consumption is, that means it will pile up in the inventory, and over the time that will become obsolete or slow moving or non moving, that you have to write it off. Okay, so is it such kind of thing? Then whether they have the adequate system of repairs and maintenance. Okay, do you have any effective procedures, or are procedures economical? The questions that we ask in the performance audit. Okay, does the enterprise have research and development programs? Because again, we are talking about the cost, technological improvements. Is there any poor or insufficient or inefficient proper project planning? Because these will not only talk about the compliance, but we are talking about performance of the project, along with the comprehensive, nature of the entire evaluation of the project. So this is how some of the areas that you can examine or issues you need to examine in this financial compliance and performance audit, which is a comprehensive audit. One audit for each and every area. Clear? Any doubt? Any doubt? If no, then see, again, in case of these performance audit, okay, in case of these audits, we need to understand how basically the audit is going on, audit is working. For example, let's say, for example, if you are talking about comprehensive audit, that means all the aspects will be looked into. That's why it's very important to understand which audit is, of which nature, what we do in that particular audit, and accordingly we need to understand that audit and the nature of the that particular audit. Okay, any doubt? Again, Okay, if no doubt, let's understand one more question. Very good question. Okay. The Ministry of Information and Technology of the Government of India has initiated a large-scale infrastructure project to improve rural connectivity under its Digital Connect program. As a part of the audit team, you are assigned to conduct a performance audit of this project with the focus on the assessing its efficiency. While auditing the efficiency of the project, what key aspects should the auditor consider to determine whether the resources are used efficiently? Now we are talking about efficiency aspect. So what are the aspects that you will look into to say that no, this particular part or this particular project is being maintained efficiently? What is the efficiency? What efficiency means? Getting the best out of the resources. Okay, getting the best out of the resources. Input output ratio. That in case of a public spending, efficiency means maximum we are getting from the minimum inputs, or the inputs which are given, we are getting maximum out of it. Okay. Now, this is the Digital Connect program, and we need to understand, what we need to understand is what key aspects, again, what key aspects that auditors should consider. So this is very important part. We have to understand the key aspect that auditors should consider to determine whether the resources are used efficiently. Again, efficiency. We are talking about efficiency. Only one aspect of the performance audit, efficiency, in this scenario. What do you think? What are those aspects? Anyone? See, when I talk about efficiency, basically at that point in time, I'm talking about that getting best out of the resources. And how can you get best out of the resources? First of all, sound practice, whether it is procurement, whether it is utilization. So your utilization, purchasing should be best. Your practice should be appropriate over there. Okay. Then you need to use the resources appropriately. Then only you can get the maximum out of it. If there is a wastage, that means you will not get the best out of it. So your resource allocation should be there, appropriate allocation. And when I say resource, not only resource, financial, non-financial, like human resource, all those things should be appropriately allocated to the project. Okay. No, you need to provide appropriate resource. That means if you are doing a understaffing, or if you are not providing proper equipments, or if you are not investing proper amount, even though there is a sanction amount, then the objective might not be that great. So you need to understand that whether the optimum amounts of resources are used or are delivered or are utilized. Okay. Then whether this particular program is being managed efficiently. Are there any operating procedures? If yes, are these operating procedures performed, followed efficiently? Whether the objective of this particular program is met, because one of the part is that you should meet the objective also. Efficiency is not only getting the best, but what one of the objective is the meeting the objective of the entire program. And when I will be able to say that I'm getting the best, when I will be able to meet, or whether when I will be able to achieve the objective of the entire program, then only I can say that, okay, I have got the best out of this particular use of resource, because I have achieved my objective of the project. Okay. So if we see, the basically some answer of this particular question. So efficiency is the input output ratio that we discussed. Okay. And some areas, sound procurement practice. As I said, sound practices, procurement, utilization, allocation, all these things should be there. Resources are properly protected and maintained. Okay. There should not be any wastage. Efficiently used, including human and financial resources. Optimum amount of resources are used in the production so that you can get the best quality, best output. Okay. programs, entities, activities are efficiently managed or regulated, operating procedures are used, and the objectives are met cost effectively, overall objectives. So these are certain things you need to look into, or the key aspects from the perspective of the efficiency. Any doubt? This is from the perspective of efficiency. Any doubt? Yes, no, no. See, this is the performance audit that we were talking about. Apart from performance audit, as we discussed, there is the comprehensive audit, which is the combination of everything. Plus, there is the proprietary audit. Now, one of the aspects of the proprietary audit, we have already seen in under the compliance. Okay, we have already seen under the compliance audit. But there are other things also in the proprietary audit that we need to understand. Okay, so when I talk about proprietary audit, what are the things that we look into when we talk about proprietary audit, basically? See, just let's go back to the regulation and understand once again. When I talk about proprietary in nature, that means we are talking about sound, financial management. We are talking about something being managed appropriately. So if I talk about proprietary in nature, I'm talking about the sound financial management, okay, and the conduct of the public officials, which is appropriate. So let me highlight this appropriately for you guys. Okay. So when I talk about this term proprietary, the focus is on the governing sound financial management, general principles governing the sound financial management, and conduct of public officials. Now, as an auditor, I will bring some, your attention to one of the similar areas that we already see in the audit of the normal companies and plus audit of the government companies and the Companies Act. So let's go to section 143. Section 143 talks about the powers and duties of the auditor. Okay. Over there are already certain matters in which the auditor is required to inquire. Okay, matters like where auditors are required to inquire. First of all, let's quickly go through whether the loans and advances made by the company on the basis of securities are properly secured. Okay, so properly secured basically. Why? Reason because basically if you see, we are talking about an area that, sound financial management. That means if we are giving a loan, we should have a security. Sound financial management. Whether the terms of these have been made prejudicial to the interest of the company. Again, something which is not in the interest of the company goes to the conduct also of the public officials. Transactions of the company which are represented in mail of book entries and prejudicial to the interest of the company means, in essence, there is no transaction, but they are just representing a book entry. Okay. Then loans and advances made by the company have been shown as a deposit, correct disclosure. Personal expense have been charged to the revenue account. Mean personal expense charged to the profit and loss account. Again, public conduct plus sound financial management principle, general principles of the governing sound financial management. Okay. Then whether the all these things represents that whether is there any impact on the company or whether the company's interest has been held, whether the operations or whether all the things which are mentioned over here are done appropriately so that there is no impact on the company. Okay, the financial management is appropriate. These are the some matters already listed in section 143 1 of the Companies Act. Because these are proprietary in nature where auditor is required to inquire. Again, this is also applicable to the government companies. Okay. So proprietary in nature, that means we are talking about something which is sound financial management, public conduct. Okay. So expenditures are incurred that are properly planned. Okay, there should be a rightful channel through which the expenditure should be incurred. They should give optimum results, maximum results. Okay, there should be appropriate decision making. So examine the actions and decisions of the management. They should be in the public interest. So these are certain things that we evaluate in the proprietary audit. Moral aspect, basically, we are talking about. Clear? Any doubt? So after doing all this, after doing all these audits, we as an auditor have to basically like issue the audit report. Like we have seen, the CNAG audit report. There could be different type of audit report for the purpose of different type of engagements. So if the direct assistant, there could be different audit report. If there is a attestation function, there will be a different audit report. Okay. Now, what happens once these audits are done? What happens after this audit? Anyone? Like, if can anyone tell me what happens once you like carry out these audits? What is the next step after this report is there? What is the next step? Can anyone tell me? These reports are issued. What is the next step? They are laid on the House of Parliament. Then what? Let's understand that also, because now we are going to the next step after the report, and that is your understanding. For your understanding purpose also, this is the House, Lok Sabha, okay, lower house of the Parliament. Once a report is issued, we will talk about some committees now. Okay, so we are talking about some financial committees. So you can go to the committees and you can click on the financial committees and you can see 3 committees over there, which are financial committees: estimates, public accounts, or public undertaking. Let's go into each of the committee. First of all, estimates committee. Okay, what is estimate committee? This is the committee which was constituted in 1950 and still there. Okay, this consists of 30 members elected every year by the Lok Sabha from its member. What is the working of this committee does? Okay, so if I talk about the committee's function, so committee what will do is to report economies, improvements in the organization, consistent with the policy, and its may be effective. Okay, they will suggest alternate policies to bring about efficiency and economy in the administration. They will examine whether the money is well laid out within the limits of the policies in the estimates, and they will suggest that in which form estimates shall be presented to the Parliament. Okay, so here policy aspect of providing affordable quality education in the country, or you can say action taken on the government recommendations. Let's see some report. We will understand how and what report is being issued. So Committee on Estimates, they provide this report after performing the analysis. Basically, if you see, they are, as I said, their function was to look into the economy, suggest the recommendations. They will provide, okay, what they can do better. If I talk about introduction and here, improvement in the organization, efficiency or administrative reform. Okay, so they are suggesting the reforms over here, observations and recommendations. Okay, so now I'll just show you some observation. See what they are suggesting. The committee note that the ministry in action taken has resubmitted this. Ministry has not specifically replied. And the committee are of the view that transition from the conventional to the organic farming involves significant initial cost and possible yield reductions. Okay, this is something that related to the farming. Okay, shift to the natural farming also has the potential to reduce fertilizers. The committee therefore reiterate their earlier recommendation, urge the ministry to take effective step to recommend as earlier. So they recommended something earlier. Now they want that ministry to take that particular recommendation and follow that. Okay. So the committee has also recommended the ministry to strengthen market linkages for organic produce. Just an example. This is how the estimate committee examines a particular ministry. They ask the details and then they issue the report. Okay, and there are multiple reports. Okay, issued by them time from time. Implementation of this, supply and distribution of natural gas challenges and prospect. A lot of things are done by the estimates committee. That is first committee. Second committee, public accounts committee. What it does, again, public account committee, basically it was first set up in 1921. Okay, and it was like before independence, pre-independence era committee. Okay, then at that point in time, it was the finance member, the member of the executive council. A lot of things were there. Now, if I talk about the functions of this committee, the committee has to satisfy that the money shown in the accounts have been disbursed and were legally available for the purpose they were shown. The expenditure conforms the authority which it governs. That means they have authority to do that expenditure. That every reappropriation has been made in accordance with the provision. To examine the statement of accounts of the government. Okay, to examine the statement of accounts showing income and expenditure of autonomous bodies. Okay, to consider the report of the CNAG in cases where the president required him to conduct an audit in case of receipts or examination of accounts. So there are some reports and they will see about the some expenditures from that perspective. If I talk about their reports, see, non-compliance, there is some non-compliance reports, management of defense offset, a lot of things are there. Loss of this much crores of replacement defective. A lot of reports are being issued by this committee, public account committee. Okay, so a lot of things then they examine and they issue the report. That's the second committee, which is the financial committee. The third financial committee is the public undertaking committee. Okay, now this committee basically has a few functions. One, to examine the reports of public undertakings specified in the fourth schedule with respect to the other aspects apart from the estimates, to examine the reports of any, if any, controller and audit journal on the public undertakings. Okay, to examine the context of autonomy and efficiency of the public undertakings, whether the affairs of the public undertakings are managed in business principles and prudent commercial practice, to exercise such functions vested in the public accounts committee and estimate committee in relation to the public undertakings not covered by these clauses. Okay, so additional functions also. And if I talk about their reports, see, here is the one of the report which is there, CNAG report. Okay, so based on the CNAG report, I think they have examined something. So let's see. So first of all, there is a particular program, okay, which has been, or there is an entity which has been considered. Plus, this was, there was a committee of public undertaking which was also briefed by the CNAG, okay, and accordingly, this particular exercise has been undertaken by the public, this undertaking committee. They have some audit observation in the CNAG report, okay, which was presented in the parliament. Now, this committee will examine these observations and accordingly, they will comment on that, whether the CNAG has looked in the matter thoroughly or not. and what the committee is recommending in this particular area. Based on the evidence of the representatives and written replies, information obtained on the subject, the committee has made their observation and recommendation in the part 2 of this report. So committee has made these recommendations. What should be done now? Okay, CNH has identified this particular issue. What should be done now as of after that issue? What actions should be taken? So the next step after the issuance of the CNAG report, if I just show you, so they will take area by area what additional things are required to be done in basically each of the identified issue, and accordingly they will suggest the next actions to be taken to the parliament, and accordingly those things will be taken up in the parliament for the further discussions, and these detailed reports are then issued. This is the role of this particular committee. Okay, here see part 2, observations and recommendations. So area by area, they have recommended something. The committee observed that the modernization, all those things are there. I'll not go into the detail, but area by area recommendation is provided. Okay. So that is the third committee that I was talking about, public undertaking committee. These are the 3 committees who look into these areas, and accordingly, they take action based on their areas. Once the CNAG report is issued, or once the matter is brought to their attention. Okay. So that is the next step once the CNAG report is issued. Any doubt till now? Any doubt? So what we have done is we have understood the objectives and scope of PSU audit, where we understood the elements and the principle of PSU audits. We understood the audit of government companies. We understood the financial compliance, performance, comprehensive proprietary audit. We understood how the audit reports are there by live example, the components of it. Okay, we understood these committees which are there: the public accounts committee, the estimates committee. Okay, and the public undertaking committee. We have seen their report also, so that you can understand their actual work on the ground. We understood the CNAG's role, we understood the regulations, and this is how the entire overview of the audit of public sector undertaking is there, with the questions that we took. Any doubt till now on this particular topic? Any doubt? See, if the next step that you need to perform basically is that after the completion, after this particular session, what you need to do is you need to read this chapter. You need to practice the questions of this chapter. That is very important. Read and practice. Because if you will not read, you will not understand the chapter in detail. Okay, your reading is required of this chapter. Secondly, you need to basically understand, okay, the things which are given based on whatever we have discussed in the class. You will be able to correlate. You will be able to understand and perform, able to perform the correlation in much more detail once you will read the chapter. Okay. And then solve the questions, practice the questions which are given. Based on that, based on those questions, then you will be able to get further understanding, because the moment you will write the questions in much more depth, reading, again going through, correlating whatever we have discussed in the chapter with your reading, then practicing will make this chapter perfect for you. Trust me, it is very easy chapter, just requires your reading a bit of practice and correlation, what we have discussed in today's session. Okay. Any doubts? Any doubts? No? If no doubts, so guys, please practice, read this chapter And in next session, please bring your doubts after reading the session, after reading the chapter. Please bring your doubts, because the more you will ask, the more clarity you will get. Okay. So if no further doubts, then thank you guys. Thank you for participating in today's session. I'll see you in next session. Thank you. Yes. Thank you.